as well as increasing longevity might be possible, if not probable. Though some hermetical texts delve into high-temperature transmutations, and recent technology suggests efficacy with high-voltage electrics and plasma, could you speculate that at least through some organic-based procedure, true alchemy could be done at low temperatures, say, as some sages suggest, egg-hatching temperatures?
Well, if you look at, I forget which book it is, I think it was The Philosopher's Stone, or, I think it was Philosopher's Stone. I, in fact, go into articles where it appears that the DNA helix has certain sorts of not necessarily transmutational properties, but that they do have unusual physical properties that occur at, so to speak, room temperature, or egg hatching temperatures, as you say, rather than high heat or high electrical stress. And if we look at another phenomenon, which is cold fusion, you have transmutations being affected there, again, at more or less room temperatures. In other words, at temperatures that are not anywhere near what standard thermonuclear transformational models suggest is necessary. And again, that I should point out that even Dr. Richter down in Argentina in the 1950s was making similar claims long before cold fusion ever became a debated and hot phenomenon within the scientific literature. So, yeah, I think all the indications observationally are there that these things are possible. The problem is that we don't really have right now a good model as to why these things are happening. There's no theory that explains or accounts for all of them as yet, at least not that I'm aware of. If there is, it's being kept very hidden, very quiet. But I think the data is sufficient there that we have to take a very serious, hard, and questioning look at the standard models of transformational physics.
Okay. I don't know if you've heard Jay Widener's recent interviews.
No.
We had one with him, and he was on the trail of Orm's monatomic gold. He switched, actually, to the tincture type.
Uh-huh.
And I'm referencing a recently released book on the Internet. It's called the Book of Aquarius.
Uh-huh.
It gives detailed instructions to develop a tincture of the Philosopher's Stone, and it poses that urine is the starting point to capture and concentrate or purify the quintessence or life energy, later to be combined with silver or gold in the typical Philosopher's Stone. There were several clues in hermetical texts that allude to the substance being cast out by servants, which indicate that it may have been something like urine. Do you think it's possible that this concoction could contain prime matter continually ingested and expelled from the human body and used as the basic building block for a homegrown version of the stone?
Well, it's really hard for me to comment on that because I haven't read the text you're referring to. I've encountered similar statements in alchemical authors like Paracelsus or Agrippa and so on and so forth. But even if I recall correctly, even there's a statement in Albert the Great, but my memory may be kind of shoddy on that one. But the problem I have with that is that alchemical texts are very, very difficult sometimes to decode. And if they're talking about actual human waste or if they're using that as code for something else, it's very, very difficult for me to decide at this point. I've run across texts like that myself. I haven't figured out what to make of them yet. I do think that there is a profound, little understood relationship between DNA and the physical medium. I don't think that there's enough in the scientific literature to permit very much speculation right now. I could crawl way out on a limb, but I'd rather not do so until I know a little bit more. I do know Jay. I've talked to him a couple of times, but I haven't heard his recent interviews and his recent thinking about all this. So, it's even difficult for me to comment on that score.
Okay. Might alchemy of the mind and spirit be a condition required to accomplish such physical alchemy?
Yes. In fact, alchemical texts are fairly clear in that respect. And again, I think it's because of their understanding that consciousness directly affects the physical medium in some way. So yes, I think that that's entirely possible. I think it's, in fact, I'll go a little bit further and say it's not only possible, but it's likely that somehow this plays a role.
Well, thank you very much. I've got my retort all warmed up, and I'll let you know in about a year.
Let me know. Let me know.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more question. Dr. Farrell, you, or more often, Georgianne Hughes, often refer to a template in the Bite Show interviews. Can you elaborate on the meaning of the template? You seem to discuss inorganic, like structure or architecture, as well as DNA for template manifestation. I'm confused about the term template.
Okay. If you've listened to the Bite Show, you've heard me explain what I mean by a template many, many times. I'm using that in a specific reference to the idea of electromagnetic interferometry. In other words, when you beam two or more beams of electromagnetic energy, usually of different frequencies, into an area where they all intersect, they will produce or establish a pattern of interference, an interference grating that is a template of action. Let me draw the analogy. If you stand by a smooth pond and hold a handful of pebbles of different sizes and toss them up into the air so that they land in the pond, each pebble is going to impact, they're going to send out waves, and you're going to take a snapshot of those waves as they intersect at a certain time, all right? That's what a template is in terms of electromagnetic interferometry, because when you're taking beams and interfering them in a certain area of different frequencies, those are going to set up what's called a beat frequency. In other words, it's going to set up a pattern of interference just like in the pond, only it's going to be three-dimensional, all right? And that pattern of interference is going to produce an effect, an action on anything within that pattern of interference. So in other words, depending on how you construct that pattern of interference, it's going to produce a certain action. That's what I mean by a template, all right? Now, the reason that I think DNA is related to this is that if you take the idea of the physical medium as giving off longitudinal waves, a longitudinal wave is a pressure wave, like a sound wave, all right? It's a sound wave or a pressure wave within the physical medium itself. DNA, well, let's back up. Any material object in a certain kind of physics emerges as a result of this interference pattern, all right? So, in other words, DNA is a result of a certain kind of interference pattern at the most basic fundamental physics level. And therefore, it's a natural oscillator. It's a natural resonator of certain types of patterns. All right? This is all, again, about fundamental physics. It's about waves in the medium. To use the ancient cosmological expression, it's about the music of the spheres. All right? That's exactly what they're talking about. So on that view, any mass is a natural resonator. Anything that is a spiraling structure is a natural resonator of it, and DNA particularly, as we know, is a spiraling structure. Well, why is that a resonator of it? Because torsion is the fundamental kind of wave given out by large rotating masses. Torsion, if you imagine what torsion is, it's a big, huge, spiraling, folding, pleating wave in the fabric of space-time. It's like you take an empty soda can and wring it like a dish rag in your hands. That produces a spiraling, folding, pleating motion in the can. And the can here represents space-time. So in other words, at a very fundamental level, DNA is a natural resonator of those kinds of waves in the physical medium because it's in the same shape, it's in the same structural form as torsion waves. And therefore, it's the most susceptible, let's put it that way, to the influence of those kinds of waves, and it in turn could possibly be the most natural manipulator of them in a certain subtle sense. So again, we're sort of back to fundamental conceptual links between all of these things. Now, that said, I should note one very important thing for your listeners. If you ask a physicist about the effects of torsion, he will either laugh and dismiss it because it's not part of the standard model of contemporary physics, or if he's more informed, he will tell you that the effects of torsion are very, very, very small mathematically, so that most physicists don't even take them into account in their calculations at all. So, we have to remember here that we're talking both fundamental concepts, but also concepts that are not on the radar screen for most modern physicists.
I understand that, and the rotation of the planets and moons also have an effect.
Sure.
As far as templates go, can you discuss the significance of topological representation of a human physiology and dimensions in the temple of Luxor? Is that a stationary mass that also performs as a template radiating this energy?
Okay. Whoa. Let's back up. I'm assuming that you're referring to some of the ideas of Schwaller de Lubitsch.
Yes.
All right. Schwaller was a mathematician, and he was principally concerned in his published writings with showing that numbers in the Egyptian mind represented geometrical functions. Geometry is not the same thing as topology. All right? Topology is a higher mathematics that is, so to speak, geometry in any number of dimensions. In other words, it allows you to take an object in 3 dimensions and via a particular kind of mathematical technique translate that object into 4 or more dimensions. All right? So in other words, topology is a very, very highly abstracted version of what de Lubitsch was saying in his works. So first of all, it's important to understand that he's not talking about topology, although he could have, because that, I think, was really what he understood. When I'm talking about topological metaphors of the medium, I'm talking about something very, very deep that is not specifically connected to any particular tradition of the manifestation of that metaphor, be it Egyptian, be it Vedic, be it Greek, be it Hermetic, what have you. In fact, I talk about